Chrisean Rock said all it takes is a knock on the door. Let that sit for a second, because she didn't say she was gonna call. She didn't say she was gonna text. She didn't say she was gonna slide a message through somebody's cousin. She said knock on the door of the house Jonathan Jamal Porter and Nevaeh Akira just brought a newborn home to. And she said it live, on stream, while thousands of people were watching her watch them. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of live meltdowns, a lot of she's not okay nights, a lot of somebody please take her phone moments. But there's something different about this one. This one didn't feel like a rant. It felt like a plan being said out loud, so nobody could say later that she didn't warn us. And the part that's really been keeping me up, nobody in that chat treated it like a threat. They laughed. Somebody offered to drive. Somebody said they'd wait in the car. It was giggles and Chad this, Chad that, while the girl on camera was basically drafting an itinerary to another woman's front door. So today we're not doing, she's just being dramatic. We're pulling this apart the way it actually happened. The stream, the text she read out loud, the exact turn where it stopped being heartbreak and started being something else. Because if we're being honest with each other, and we are always honest with each other on Fame Cryptics, this ain't a love story anymore. This is a pattern, and the pattern is telling on itself. Stick with me. I need your eyes on the second half especially, because that's where his text messages flip everything you thought you knew about who's chasing who. Quick thing before we go deeper. If you rock with the way we break this stuff down, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Fame Cryptics don't miss a beat in this culture, and the next 48 hours around this situation are going to be wild. You want to be here when the next shoe drops. Alright, back to it. Here's the setup, and I'm going to keep it clean, so we all on the same page. Before I even get to the two streams, I need to lay down something the clip pages keep skipping, because without it nothing that happened that night makes sense. This story did not start with a baby reveal. This story has been running for years, in public, on camera, and, importantly for everything we're about to discuss, largely for profit. As longtime viewers already know, Chrisean Rock and Jonathan Jamal Porter's relationship has been documented almost from the beginning on reality programming, most visibly through their Zeus Network projects, where the dysfunction wasn't a bug in the content. It was the content. Fights were episodes. Breakups were season arcs. Reconciliations were premieres. Multiple outlets have reported over the years on the arrests, the altercations, the on-again, off-again announcements, the tattoos, the paternity questions, the whole rotating carousel of it. I'm not rehashing all of that tonight. That's a documentary by itself. But you have to hold one fact in your head while we go through this stream. These two people have never once experienced their relationship privately. Not one chapter of it. Every high and every low has had a lens on it, and a monetization model underneath it. So when we talk about what happened on this particular night, we're not talking about a woman who suddenly started performing her heartbreak. We're talking about a woman whose entire adult romantic history has only ever existed as performance. Keep that. It matters later. The other thing you need in your pocket before we start. Timing. Jonathan, per his own public statements and reporting around his legal situation over the past couple of years, has been in and out of custody, in and out of house situations, in and out of relationships, sometimes overlapping, depending on whose timeline you believe. Chrisean gave birth to their son, Chrisean Jr., in September of 2023, and she did it on Instagram Live, which tells you everything about the ecosystem we're operating in. Jaden Alexis, the mother of his older children, and, for a stretch, his very public fiancée, has her own long, documented chapter in this. And Nevaeh Akira, the woman at the center of tonight's story, entered the frame publicly with her own history, her own son from a previous situation, and her own claim on Jonathan's present tense. None of these women arrived yesterday. All of them have been, at various points, announced as the one. All of them have, at various points, been announced as done. And all of them, at various points, have found out where they actually stood the same way the rest of us did, by watching. So when I say two streams, one newborn, understand that the streams were just the latest venue for a play that's been running so long the cast has memorized each other's lines. Now, the night itself, Nevaeh Akira gave birth. Her and Jonathan Blueface, But I'ma use his government here because the special instructions asked me to, and honestly it feels right for a story this serious. They went live. They showed the baby's face. Jonathan Jamal Porter Jr. him. On camera. Proud dad energy. The kind that until recently a lot of people, including his own children's mothers, would have told you doesn't exist in that man. And I want to underline one detail that got lost in noise. The name. Jonathan Jamal Porter Jr. A. Jr. In a lot of families, and especially in black families, giving a son his father's government name is not a casual decision. It's a statement. It's legacy language. It's this one carries me. Now, and this is where I need you to be fair with me, because we're fair on this channel. We don't know whose idea the name was. We don't know what conversations happened around it. And I'm not going to pretend we do. But what I can tell you is what it looked like from the outside. And from the outside it looked like a coronation. And coronations, by definition, mean somebody else didn't get crowned. While that stream is happening, Chrisean Rock is on her own stream, watching them, in real time, reacting to them, commentating on their baby, reading the chat about their baby, and slowly, minute by minute, unraveling in a way that a whole lot of people are now calling obsession, not heartbreak. Obsession. Let me be precise about what watching them in real time means mechanically, because it's stranger than it sounds. She had their stream pulled up. Her stream was live. So at any given moment you had a three-layer situation. Jonathan and Nevaeh performing domestic happiness for their audience. Chrisean watching that performance, while performing her reaction for her audience. And her audience watching her watch them. And then clipping it, which created a fourth layer, which is the layer most people actually consumed. Almost nobody saw this night in full. Almost everybody saw it in 15-second vertical slices, with captions added by somebody with an agenda. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this breakdown in the first place. The full stream is long and uncomfortable and mostly boring in the way real unraveling is boring. Long silences, repeated thoughts, laughing at nothing. The clips make it look like a highlight reel of insanity. The full tape looks like something sadder and slower. That's the setting. Two streams. One newborn. One woman on the outside looking in through the exact same lens the rest of the internet was using, which is somehow the part that stings the most. She wasn't getting a phone call. She wasn't getting a heads up. She was watching it happen the same way you were. Sit with that detail too, because it tells you where she actually ranks in the current org chart of his life, whatever the texts we're about to read might suggest. When a man is about to do something he knows will detonate in your direction, show a baby's face on live. A baby whose very existence reorders the whole board. And he doesn't send so much as a heads up. It's happening tonight text. That is information. That's not an oversight. Men in these situations know exactly what a surprise baby face reveal will do to the woman on the outside. They've lived through the fallout cycles before. So the absence of a warning is either indifference or it's design. And given everything else we're about to look at, I'm not sure indifference is the scarier option. If it was design, if somebody in that house understood that Chrisean would be watching and would react, and that her reaction would become content that drives attention back to their announcement, then we're not just watching a love triangle anymore. We're watching an attention economy with a newborn in the middle of it. I said what I said. Hold that thought, because when we get to his text messages, you're going to see the same business brain operating in a much smaller font. That is the incident. Everything after this is the fallout. Let me walk you through what she actually said, because the clips are getting chopped up and posted out of order, and I don't want anybody making up their mind on a highlight reel. And let me add my standard disclaimer, because it matters more than usual this time. I am working from the stream as it aired and the text messages as she read them aloud on that stream. Where I'm interpreting, I'll tell you I'm interpreting. Where something is her account of events, I'll frame it as her account. Nobody in this video is on trial. Nobody in this video has been accused of a crime by me. And everything we're discussing about intentions and motives is analysis of public behavior, not a verdict. Cool. She's on live. Blueface and Nevaeh Akira's stream is up on her second screen. And she starts with the house. Now the house. Before we even get to the quote, understand that the house is not a new character in this story. Housing has been a recurring battleground in this extended universe for years. Who's living where? Who got put out? Who's staying at whose place? Whose name is on what? Reported disputes over living arrangements have surfaced repeatedly in this group's public history, and on the reality show. The house itself was practically a cast member. So when Chrisean opens her commentary not with the baby, not with the man, but with real estate, she's not changing the subject. She's going straight to what, in her mind, is the scoreboard. In this ecosystem, a house is not shelter. A house is a title belt. It's proof of position. It's the thing you can point at and say, see where I rank. And Nevaeh, on that night, was streaming from inside one. I don't want that house. I want the new house. I don't want this. I want that. To grow up and mature into a better man. Then that's my. Her friend cuts in trying to slow her down. Hold on. Hold on. Let's recap. Recap. We want the new house. It's gonna be a new house. And Chrisean goes, yes. That's my house. Read that back. That's my house. Not I want a house. Not I deserve a house. That's my house. Present tense. Possessive. Like the deed already got her name on it, and Nevaeh is just squatting until she gets there. Here's what I keep turning over about that line. It's not just possessive, it's familiar. Like she's discussing property, she's already toured. And the friend's intervention is telling too. In the opposite direction. Recap. We want the new house. Watch what the friend did there. She converted my into we. And she converted a claim into a wish. That's a person doing live crisis management with a smile on. That's somebody who has been in the room for previous cycles and knows where monologues like this can end up. I don't know who that friend was. I'm not going to speculate, but whoever she is, she was the only person on that entire stream, chat included, who seemed to understand in real time that words said on live have a shelf life beyond the night you say them. Everybody else was laughing. She was editing. Then the baby's face comes up on their stream. And Chrisean goes off. Why did she show that baby like that? I thought they wasn't showing the face. Laughs. Oh my gosh. He showed the baby face. Oh my God. Screaming. 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 Notice what she said first. Not congratulations. Not he's beautiful. Not even wow. Her first reaction was procedural. I thought they wasn't showing the face. Which means she had been tracking the rollout. She knew the plan. She knew there had been a decision, at some point, to not show the baby's face, and she knew it closely enough to be genuinely shocked when the plan changed. That level of surveillance is not casual. That's a person monitoring a situation the way you'd monitor weather before a flight. And I don't say that to mock her, because honestly, most of us have done some version of that monitoring in the social media age. Checking the page, reading between posts, clocking who watched your story. The difference is scale and stakes. She's doing it in front of a live audience, about a man she shares a child with, regarding a newborn whose name shares his. And there's a second layer to, why did she show that baby like that I haven't seen anybody clock? Showing the face is a one-way door. Once a baby's face is on the internet, it's on the internet. For a couple building a public domestic brand, and whether we like it or not, that's what's being built over there. The face reveal is the biggest content milestone there is. It's the season finale. So Chrisean's shock isn't just personal. She was watching a strategic asset get deployed. She knew exactly what that moment was worth, because she's the woman who once gave birth on Instagram Live herself. She has monetized these exact milestones. She knows the exchange rate. Imagine watching somebody else cash a check you feel like you printed. That's the night she was having. And this is where it stopped being funny for me, because it's the part where she looked at Chad, her chat, and asked, dead serious in the middle of a laugh, Chad, would you see me argue over somebody? No. Chad. Whoa. Now I see why he popping it. Now I see why he popping it. That line got clipped and laughed at, but it's actually the most honest sentence she said all night, and I don't think she meant it the way the internet took it. The internet took it as shade toward Nevaeh. Like, now I see why he's acting brand new. But listen to it again. I hear something worse in it. I hear a woman reverse engineering her own replacement in real time. Now I see why he's showing off. Now I understand the mechanism. She's studying the thing that worked on him, the calm, the baby, the domestic scene, and comparing it against the thing she brought. And the math is not coming out in her favor. That's the moment right there. That's her doing math on camera. She's not just watching the man she loves love someone else's baby. She's watching him love that baby the way she thought only she could make him love. She's clocking that Jonathan Jamal Porter is capable of the thing. And it wasn't her that unlocked it. It was somebody else. That is a specific kind of pain, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But pain doesn't make the next part okay. And I want to say one more thing about that pain before we move to movement too, because the comment sections have been vicious in a way that I think misses the actual story. There is a well-documented, widely reported pattern, not just with these two, but across this whole era of relationships as content, where the person who was present for the struggle years watches someone else arrive for the soft years, the years where he's calmer, more resourced, more careful. It's one of the oldest aches there is, and fame puts a ring light on it. Chrisean was there for the chaotic years, some of which, to be fair and accurate, she helped make chaotic. And that history is public too. But the version of Jonathan she's watching through that second screen is a version she was told by experience did not exist. Whether that version is real or performed is a separate question. And honestly, given this man's track record, a healthy one to ask. But from her side of the glass that night, it looked real. And that looking real is the knife. Keep that image in your head. A woman watching a miracle she was told was impossible, happening for somebody else. Because the next thing she's going to say is the thing that turned this whole night from sad into something else entirely. This is the part one need you locked in for. Quick note on sequencing, because the clip pages have this scrambled. The knock conversation doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes after the house talk, after the baby face, after the now I see why he popping it math. In other words, it comes after the evidence has stacked up past what she could laugh off. The order matters. This wasn't a cold, open threat. This was the end of a logical chain, at least as her night was logic ing. Somebody in her circle says something about him texting her, and Chrisean says, and I'm not paraphrasing, you know what I need to do? We need to fly out there tonight. Her friend goes, what? Chrisean, hi. Knock knock. Her friend, and shout out to whoever this friend was for at least trying. You gonna knock on the door? I don't want to be with you for that. That's scary. Chrisean, I'll drop you off. Friend, no. I'll wait in the car. Chrisean, I don't want to not be on scene. I gotta be on scene. Don't follow. You just said you're tired of flights. Chrisean, I'm not tired of him though. I need everybody to sit inside that last line. I'm not tired of him though, because that line is the whole video in 6 words. She's tired of everything else. Tired of the flights, tired of the routine, tired of the humiliation cycle probably. But she is not tired of him. And when the object of your obsession is the one thing you refuse to get tired of, you don't outrun it. It runs you. Now let me do the thing the internet refuses to do, which is take the friend's side seriously for 1 full minute. Count her responses. What? Disbelief. That's scary. A direct, correctly calibrated risk assessment. I'll wait in the car. The single most iconic sentence of the entire night. And I mean that sincerely, because that sentence is the exact sound of somebody trying to stay loyal to a friend while not becoming a co-defendant in a hypothetical. We have all had a night where we were the friend in that exchange. Maybe not at this altitude, but the shape of it is universal. Somebody you love announces a plan that is equal parts romantic gesture and terrible idea, and you have about 4 seconds to decide how much of it you're willing to co-sign. Her answer was, none of it, but I'll keep you company on the way there. That's real friendship, honestly. Messy, compromised, real. And notice, Chrisean heard that's scary, and her response wasn't to reassure. It was logistics. I'll drop you off. The fear didn't register as information. It registered as a scheduling problem. That's the detail that turned my stomach a little, if I'm being honest with you. Not the knock line itself. People say wild things on live, and we'll get into whether I think she meant it, but the frictionlessness of it. The plan absorbed objections without slowing down. That's what practiced escalation looks like. And the on-scene part, that's not a girl on the way to talk. That's language people use when they're going somewhere to witness or to do. Either she's showing up to catch him lying about being there, or she's showing up because she wants to be seen showing up. Both of those are the kind of thing that shows up in a police report if the wrong 5 minutes happen. Let me be careful and clear here, because this is the part of the video where I could get sloppy, and I refuse to. Nothing in that exchange is a crime. Talking about flying somewhere is legal. Knocking on a door is legal. Unseen is a phrase, not an act. I am not alleging she intended harm. I'm not alleging anyone was in danger. And nothing in this video should be taken as me saying she did anything but talk on a live stream. What I am saying, what the commenters were saying, what anybody who has watched this saga for years was saying, is that language exists on a ladder, and certain rungs of that ladder have shown up before in this relationship's very public, very documented history of altercations, which multiple outlets have reported on over the years. When two people have a recorded pattern of conflict that has, at various times, involved police, then even hypothetical travel plans get heard differently. That's not hysteria. That's context. The words don't exist in a vacuum. They exist on top of a resume. There's also a timing question here that I haven't seen a single person raise. So let me raise it. Why say it on live at all? If you genuinely intend to show up somewhere unannounced, the announcing part defeats the purpose. You don't broadcast the element of surprise. So one of two things is true. Either it was pure impulse, a thought said out loud the second it formed, which tracks with the spiraling energy of that stream, or the announcement was the point. The flight was never the payload. The live stream was the payload. Because here's the thing about Jonathan Jamal Porter that everybody in this story knows. He watches. He has always watched. He's built a career on watching reactions and farming them. And if you know the person you're trying to reach sees everything you do on camera, then the camera becomes the phone. You don't call him. You go live. And you let the clip pages deliver the message for you. Under that reading, and again, this is analysis, not allegation. Knock knock wasn't travel planning. It was a flare. Fired upward, hoping to be seen by exactly one person. The internet caught it too. One comment said this is sick obsession. Another said if this ain't obsession, they don't know what is. One person said Nevaeh needs to get a restraining order. Another one, and this is the one that stuck with me, said the love in her eyes looked like she wanted to cry. Not the anger. The love. That's a scarier read, honestly. I keep coming back to that last comment too. And I want to push it one step further. Anger would almost be cleaner. Anger cools. Anger can be argued with, waited out, apologized for. But what that commenter clocked, and credit to them, whoever they were, is that the engine of that whole stream wasn't rage. It was devotion with nowhere to go. And devotion with nowhere to go doesn't cool off. It circulates. It builds pressure. It looks for cracks. That's the thing about that night that separates it from 100 other. She's crashing out clips we've all scrolled past. Most crash outs are anger events. This one was a love event wearing anger's clothes. And those burn longer. One more thing before we leave movement 2, because it sets up everything in movement 3. Remember that this entire exchange, the flight, the knock, unseen. I'm not tired of him though. Happened on a stream where, minutes later, she voluntarily opened her own text messages and read them to the world. Those two behaviors are the same behavior. The knock on the door talk and the reading your text aloud talk are both versions of a person making her private pursuit public on purpose. The question we're building toward is why. And the texts themselves are about to give us the closest thing to an answer we're gonna get. Now, and this is where the story flips in a way that I don't think the meme accounts have caught yet. Chrisean starts reading her own text messages, on stream, to thousands of people, which is by itself a choice. Because if these texts made her look good, cool. But she read them anyway, and they don't. So we have to ask what she thought they proved. That's a whole psychology lecture for another day. Actually, let me give it half a lecture right now, because I think the why here is less mysterious than people are making it. When somebody reads their own messages out loud to an audience, they're usually doing one of three things: building a case, recruiting a jury, or reading them back to themselves to hear how they sound out loud. I think, honestly, it was all three. She needed witnesses to what she sent him, because a message sent into silence might as well not exist. And by that point in the night, his silence was the loudest thing in the story. Reading the texts to Chad converted a one-on-one rejection into a public record. Once thousands of people have heard you say, either we choose each other or we give each other freedom, he can't quietly pocket that message anymore. It's out. It's time-stamped in the culture. She was, consciously or not, publishing. And people only publish what they're afraid will otherwise disappear. She reads what she sent him. And it starts beautiful. Genuinely. I'm not being sarcastic. It starts like a woman who did some work. I said, I love you. I said, hear my heart. I said, I know right now we're on the opposite sides of the country living two different lives, but after my fight, I want us to go to Jerusalem together. I want the trip to mean something for us spiritually, to get away from all the noise, seek God, get clarity, and come back with a different mindset. When we come back, I want us to create. I want us to be creative together. I really want you to be involved with my boxing journey, not just watching from the outside, but helping me build it, document, control the narrative in a positive way, and turn this chapter of our lives into something powerful. That is a mature message. That's a grown woman's message. If you drop that message on somebody with no context, you'd think she was writing to a partner she'd been building with for 10 peaceful years. Now, because we do receipts on this channel, let's also clock the architecture of that message, because it's more strategic than it first reads, and I don't mean that as an insult. Look at what she offered in order. First, spiritual renewal, Jerusalem, God, clarity. Second, creative partnership. Let's create together. Third, business integration. Helping me build it, document, control the narrative. That third one is the tell that she knows exactly who she's pitching. Because Jonathan Jamal Porter's whole professional identity, for years now, has been narrative. The streams, the reality shows, the manufactured moments, the chaos monetized in real time. Control the narrative is not a phrase you use with a man unless you know narrative is the product he sells. She wasn't just offering him love. She was offering him a role, a producer credit on her next era. Think about how well she must know him to structure a reconciliation text like a business proposal with a pilgrimage stapled to the front of it. That's not naivety. That's fluency. She's fluent in him. And the Jerusalem detail deserves its own beat. Chrisean's faith has been a public through line for a while now. The church content, the gospel talk, the baptism era posts her followers will remember. I am not in the business of grading anybody's relationship with God, and I'm not starting tonight. But it's worth noting that Let's Go to Jerusalem is doing double duty in that message. It's spiritual, yes. It's also the maximum possible distance, geographically, culturally, spiritually, from Los Angeles, from Zeus, from the chats, from Nevaeh. She wasn't just proposing a trip. She was proposing an extraction. Get him so far from the noise that maybe, in the quiet, he becomes the version of himself she keeps insisting is in there. That's the fantasy underneath the itinerary. And fantasies like that don't survive contact with the man's actual texted response, which we're getting to, and which is colder than you remember. She keeps going. We got a kid too, though. So I'm also keeping in mind what a powerful force it could be. We could really be great together if we stop feeding distraction. We got a kid too, though. 7 words, and there's a whole custody-shaped ache inside them. Because here's the context the memes skip. Their son, Chrisean Jr., has been at the center of public questions, public disputes, and public commentary since before he was born. The paternity discussions, the health speculation from strangers, which was cruel, and which I won't platform here beyond acknowledging it happened. All of it played out in public. So when she invokes the kid in this text, she's not playing a card. She's naming the one thing in this entire mess that is permanent. Houses change. Fiancés rotate. Streams end. The kid doesn't. And the subtext, I don't think it's even subtext, honestly. It's just text, is, he is building a family tableau with somebody else right now, on camera, tonight. And we already have one. It exists. It's real. Why is it enough to come back to? Then the part 1 keep rereading. If these feelings are mutual, then I believe you understand exactly what I'm saying. And if not, I respect that too. We could love each other for what we were and peacefully live our lives separately. I just don't want us halfway loving each other anymore. Either we really choose each other and build something beautiful, or we give each other the freedom to fully move forward. That message is not the message of a woman planning to knock on somebody's door. That is the message of a woman who wrote a closing statement, sent it, and hoped somewhere in her chest that he'd read it and rearrange his whole life. I want to defend this paragraph from the internet for a second, because the internet has been using it as a punchline. Look at her begging. Look at her groveling. And I think that's a lazy read. That paragraph, structurally, is the healthiest thing in this entire saga. It's an ultimatum, yes, but a clean one. Choose or release. No threats. No leverage. No kids ask collateral. I respect that too. Is a sentence most people in these dynamics never learn to type. If she had sent that message and then gone silent, really silent, months silent, the kind of silent that forward motion Chrisean keeps promising, we would be doing a completely different video right now. We'd be doing the Chrisean's growth era video. The tragedy isn't that she wrote it. The tragedy is what happened between sending it and going live. Because somewhere in that gap, the closing statement got reopened. And the thing that reopened it is sitting in the next movement, typed in his own words. He didn't. And that's what broke the thing. His reply. And again, she read this on stream. So this is her chosen framing of the conversation, was short. And I want to flag that framing caveat one more time, because it's load-bearing. Everything we know about this exchange, we know because she chose to read it. She controlled which messages got aired, in what order, with what commentary. That's not nothing. It means even his coldest lines come to us through her editorial filter, which raises a question I genuinely cannot answer. What did she not read? If this is the version she chose to broadcast, what's sitting in the part she skipped? I'm not implying anything specific. I'm saying every screenshot economy has a cutting room floor, and this one is no different. Keep a small, healthy skepticism about the completeness of this record, even while we take the words she did read at face value. I love you. I'm down for you. Let's see after your fight where things go. Now here's the tell. If he'd stopped there, this whole night is a different night. That sentence has a door still cracked. Cliché sentence. Non-committal sentence. But cracked. Let me translate that sentence into plain speech, because men like this count on you not translating. I love you. Costs nothing, resets nothing, commits to nothing. It's the emotional equivalent of a read receipt. I'm down for you. Down is doing a lot of unlicensed work in that sentence. Down has no address, no date, no obligations. And let's see after your fight. That is the load-bearing wall of the whole message. It sounds like patience. It's actually a deferral mechanism. It moves every decision to a date that is conveniently after her next big public moment. A moment, by the way, where her win or loss will change her market value. I'm not saying he sat there calculating that. I'm saying men who have spent years turning relationships into content develop an instinct for keeping every option alive until the ratings come in. Let's see is not a plan. Let's see is a holding pattern dressed as one. And a holding pattern is exactly where you keep somebody you want available, but not entitled. He didn't stop there. He kept typing. And this is where he did what he does. And it's what he's always done to every woman connected to him. And if you've been watching this soap opera for years like some of us, have you already know the choreography? He said. And I'm not trying to keep you from moving on. I just thought you already moved on. That's how we got here in the first place. That is a very particular kind of sentence. That is the sentence you send when you want to reframe every real thing the other person is feeling as their own fault. She's over here writing about Jerusalem and legacy and building something real. He responded by essentially saying, you left first, remember? You did this. You started this. This is your consequence. There's a name for the move in that sentence, and people who survived relationships like this felt it in their teeth before I say it out loud. It's the retroactive permission slip. I thought you already moved on doesn't just dodge her question. It rewrites the history so that everything currently hurting her was pre-approved by her own past behavior. Notice what it accomplishes in one line. It absolves him of the present. I'm not keeping you from anything. It indicts her for the past. You moved on first. And it frames his current situation, another woman, a newborn, a live stream, as a natural consequence of her choices rather than any choice of his. That's a three-point play in a single text. Say what you want about the man, and we will, but that is a professionally evasive sentence. You don't learn to write that sentence from one argument. That's a sentence with a career behind it, and the timing of it matters. She wrote paragraphs. He wrote a line and a knife. She read it out loud and tried to answer it in real time. She said the reason she moved out that house wasn't because she stopped loving him. It's because, her words, she Didn't feel secure enough to even play with my life like that. There was no spiritual maturity, mental maturity. She said, I'm going to stay in a gym, stay in church, stay with the gospel, and just try to stay far away from my temptations and things that pull me backwards. That right there is, for my money, the most self-aware thing she said all night, and I don't want it to get lost in the chaos we're about to re-enter. I didn't feel secure enough to even play with my life like that. That's a woman naming her own safety as the reason for distance. Not pride, not strategy. Safety. Emotional, spiritual, maybe more than that. And I'm not going to speculate past her words. When somebody tells you they left because staying felt like gambling with their life, the correct response from him, from the internet, from us, is not, then why do you keep coming back? The correct response is to sit with what it means that leaving felt necessary and staying felt dangerous. She diagnosed her own situation accurately. She has always been able to diagnose it. The diagnosis has never been the problem. But then 2 sentences later, she said this. But I also believe that God can really do a new thing in Jonathan's heart, his mind, and soul. That man ain't dead yet. God can switch it all around for him. And that right there, that's the fracture. Because in one breath, she's telling us she's leaving her temptation alone. And in the next breath, she's telling us her temptation is a redemption project. You can't be both the woman walking away and the woman still praying he becomes worth staying for. One of those women knocks on the door at 2 a.m. The other one doesn't. And I think we all know which one won that night. I want to stay here one extra beat because this fracture is not unique to Chrisean, and it's the thing I get the most messages about whenever we cover this saga. Women, and men too, writing and saying, how do I stop doing exactly this? The God can change him belief is spiritually true and strategically lethal at the same time, and nobody teaches you how to hold both. Yes, people change. Reportedly, occasionally, with years of work they do for themselves and not for a partner. But he might change is not a plan you build a life around. It's a lottery ticket you tape to your mirror. And notice what the belief does to her own exit. It converts leaving from a decision into a waiting room. She's not gone. She's on hold. The gym, the church, the gospel, all real, all good. But in that sentence they function less like a new life, and more like a place to sit, until his heart gets renovated. And here's the cruelest part. He doesn't even have to ask her to wait. The hope does it for him. Free of charge. He gets to live his whole other life on camera, while her hope keeps her parked. If that's not the entire business model in miniature, I don't know what is. And don't worry. We're about to get to the business model, because she named it herself out loud, in the best paragraph of her entire stream. Then it got worse. She read the part where he told her, and I want you to hear this the way she heard it, out loud, on her own stream, with the whole internet listening. I'm not reading no more messages, to be honest. If you think you're valid for the role you played, I'm not even going to leave. Yeah, I've been cheating on this since I've been home, since you decided to go cheat back. So I don't plan on leaving somebody that's for somebody that's going to run. He confirmed the cheating on a text message. She then read to a live audience. He said it in 4K, her words, and her response to that. The response she chose to broadcast was to laugh and say, he said it in 4K this time. Yada yada yada. Look at all that. Yada yada. She yada yadded a cheating admission, because the alternative was to sit inside it. And she was already sitting inside too much that night. Let's actually parse his sentence, because it's a masterpiece of the genre, and it went by too fast. I've been cheating on this since I've been home, a confession. Since you decided to go cheat back. And instantly, the confession becomes her fault. Read the engineering on that. In his framing, his cheating isn't a betrayal, it's a response. A consequence. A bill she ran up. That's not an apology wearing a costume, that's a countersuit. And then the closer. I don't plan on leaving somebody that's for somebody that's going to run. Unpack that. He's describing Nevaeh, presumably, by context, as somebody who won't run, and Chrisean as somebody who will. So the punishment for her having once protected herself by leaving is permanent demotion, and the reward for Nevaeh staying is his presence, which, by his own admission in the very same text, includes cheating. That's the prize structure, spelled out in his own words. Loyalty gets you a man who tells you, in writing, that he's unfaithful. And both women in this story are currently competing for it. If you ever need one paragraph to explain why this saga is a tragedy and not a comedy, screenshot his text, not her screaming, his typing. And one more detail I refuse to let slide by. I'm not reading no more messages, to be honest. She wrote him the most vulnerable paragraphs of her adult life. Jerusalem, legacy, choose me or free me. And his response began by announcing he was done reading. That is the entire power dynamic in one clause. She writes essays, he schemes and grades them. And yet, and this is the part that should make all of us a little humble, she kept reading his replies out loud to thousands of people like scripture. Because even a dismissal from him is still contact. And contact, at that point in the night, was the only currency left. Then, and this is the last piece before we move on because I could sit in this text thread for another hour. She reads what he texted her when she was on the phone with him earlier. You know what to do. I already know you want me to love you and be there for you. Cater to you. Grow up. Do what you gotta do to make that right with me. And I got you. That is a leash disguised as a text message. That is a man telling a woman that access to his love is conditional on her behavior improving to his specification. And she read it to us like it was proof of the connection. It's proof of the connection. It's just not the connection she thinks it is. Grow up. From him. In that thread, I need you to appreciate the audacity in 4K. To borrow her phrase, a man who, per his own text, has been cheating since he got home, is lecturing the mother of his son about maturity, and pricing his affection at do what you got to do to make that right with me. Make what right exactly? What's the invoice for? As far as the public record of this relationship goes, and it's a long, loud, heavily reported record. The ledger of harm between these two does not run in one direction, and it does not run mostly toward him. But that's the magic trick of the whole message. With one grow up, the man who just confessed to cheating repositions himself as the wrong party accepting applications for forgiveness. And the devastating part, the part that made that whole stream make sense, is that it worked. She didn't read that text to us as an insult. She read it as a door. And I got you. Those 4 words at the end are the hook the entire message was built to deliver. Everything before it was the conditioning that makes those 4 words feel like water in a desert. All right, let me tell you what I actually think, because we don't do fence-sitting on this channel. Everybody's calling this a Chrisean versus Nevaeh beef. It's not. It has never been. And treating it like a girl fight is exactly what benefits the one person in this triangle who benefits from nobody looking directly at him. Let me expand on that, because it's the spine of this whole video. The girl fight framing isn't just lazy, it's load-bearing. It does work. Every cycle of this saga, the same thing happens. 2 women's names trend. His name trends as an accessory to theirs. The clip pages eat. The streams get a bump. And by the time the dust settles, the only person whose behavior went unexamined is the person all of it was about. This has happened with Jaden. It has happened with Chrisean. It is now happening with Nevaeh. Different women, same headline template, same beneficiary. And the incentive structure underneath, it is not subtle if you're willing to look at it. Conflict between the women generates attention. Attention generates streams and show deals and club appearances and podcast bookings. And that revenue flows toward the center of the triangle, not the corners. I'm not alleging anyone is scripting fights. I'm saying nobody at the center of this has ever had a financial reason to stop them. There's a difference, and the difference is the whole story. Chrisean said it herself in the middle of that stream. And this is the line the algorithm keeps skipping past, because it's not clippable. This is the reason why all the baby mamas is beefing. He's trying to have one person promise them a lifetime of a future with him. And then they all compete for that one thing that he promised that he's not going to keep. Then he manipulating and milking the situation to make funds. So now he running a business. A toxic business based off of our vulnerability and the lack of self-esteem and love that we have for ourselves. That's evil. She said it. She diagnosed the entire operation in one paragraph. She named the mechanism. She named the product. She named the customer base. She even named that she was one of the customers. And then, on the same stream, she volunteered to buy again. That paragraph deserves to be studied. And I mean that without a drop of irony. Strip the stream of everything else. The screaming, the knock-knock, the yada-yada. And that paragraph alone would still make this night significant, because it's the first time in the entire public history of this saga that one of the participants described the system as a system. Not he did me wrong. Not she's a homewrecker. The architecture. One promise, multiple competitors, artificial scarcity, monetized fallout. That's not a rant. That's a market analysis from inside the market. And the word she landed on, evil, is doing more work than people noticed. She didn't call him a cheater. She didn't call him a liar. She called the enterprise evil. That's a woman who, for one lucid minute, stopped being a character in the show and started being its critic. Which raises the question I've been circling all video. If she can see it that clearly, why can't she leave it? And I think the honest answer is one the internet doesn't want to sit with because it's not funny. Clarity and freedom are different muscles. You can have perfect vision and no legs. Knowing exactly what the trap is does not, by itself, produce the strength to step out of it. Especially when the trap is also your co-parent, your history, your first viral era, your most watched years, and the subject of your best-known music. Leaving him isn't leaving a man. It's leaving an archive. It's leaving the version of herself that the world first clapped for. That's a heavier door than the one she talked about knocking on. And it's the one that actually matters. That is the tragedy of this whole thing. Chrisean Rock is not stupid. She is a woman who can see the trap so clearly she can describe it to strangers on the internet, and then walk into it anyway, in real time, in front of the same strangers she just warned. That is not a girl who needs to be dragged. That is a girl who needs to be understood. And then, if she won't do the work, respectfully left to figure it out on her own timeline. Now here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Nevaeh Akira didn't do this to her. Nevaeh gave birth. That's it. That's the crime. She had a baby with a man who's technically single, who's publicly stated he's moved on, and who is showing up as a father in a way that, and this is the part that has to hurt, he never showed up for Chrisean Jr. Not really. Not consistently. Not with pride. Not with a look, that's my son broadcast. I want to be fair to Nevaeh in a way the internet hasn't been, because she's catching strays for the crime of being on camera during another woman's heartbreak, from everything publicly visible. And I want to be clear, none of us knows these people. Nevaeh has played this the smartest way it can be played. She had her baby. She showed her baby. She kept her captions soft. And she has not, as of this recording, fired a single public shot at Chrisean. No subliminals that I verified. No response videos. Nothing. Now you can read that two ways. The charitable read. She's a new mother protecting her peace, and silence is simply what peace looks like from outside. The colder read, and I present it only because this channel deals in mechanics, not fairy tales, is that silence is also the most dominant position available to her. She doesn't need to say anything. She has the house, the baby, the junior, and the live stream. Every word Chrisean says into the void only underlines who's holding the quiet. In a war of attention, the person who doesn't flinch wins by default. Either way, peace or strategy, Nevaeh has understood something about this game that took Chrisean years to articulate. You don't have to win the argument if you already hold the thing being argued over. Because let's be honest, both of these women, Chrisean and Nevaeh, had other men come out and claim their kids at various points. Nevaeh's situation was even messier. There were multiple men in the conversation about Superior, her older son, the one who's hers alone. But when it came to Jonathan Jamal Porter Jr., the newborn, Jonathan brushed all that mess to the side and claimed him, publicly, on camera, face and all. Something he has yet to do with the same energy for Chrisean Jr. And let me slow down on the word energy, because that's where the wound actually is. Nobody is saying Jonathan has never acknowledged Chrisean Jr. He has, at times, publicly. The comparison that stings isn't presence versus absence. It's temperature. A name, a face reveal, a proud dad livestream from a calm home, versus acknowledgement that, historically, has arrived wrapped in chaos, controversy, or follow-up questions. Chrisean watched a man hand her replacement the ceremony she never got, for a baby younger than hers, in a house she had just claimed was hers, with a name that announced legacy. And she watched it the same way we did, through a screen, uninvited and unwarned. Forget the knock for a second. Forget the flights. If you want to understand why this particular night broke something in this particular woman, you don't need a psychology degree. You just need to imagine watching the milestone you lived through alone get restaged for somebody else with a full production crew and a smiling lead. That's not jealousy of Nevaeh. That's grief with a face on it. That is what's actually eating her. Not the woman. Not the baby. The knowledge that the softness she was told didn't exist inside him did exist. Just not for her. Or not enough for her. Or not on the timeline she needed. And you cannot argue somebody out of that grief. That's not a fight the internet can win for her. The obsession chatter. The she needs a restraining order chatter. I understand where it's coming from, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's paranoid. She said knock on the door. She said fly out tonight. She said on scene. Those are not lyrics. Those are directions. And the reason people are treating it as a threat and not a joke is because we have collectively watched this pair reach a tempo that, historically, has ended in something you'd have to explain to a judge. So the concern isn't dramatic. The concern is pattern recognition. And let me add the layer that makes the pattern argument stronger and sadder at the same time. The audience is part of the tempo now. Go back to that chat. Nobody said girl log off. Nobody said call your mama instead. They offered to drive. They offered to wait in the car. They clipped it, titled it, posted it, monetized it. There's an entire economy. And I include our corner of YouTube in this. Fame Cryptics is not exempt. The difference is we try to do it with our eyes open. That pays out every time this woman gets worse instead of better. Her best night financially is her worst night personally. Her rock bottom has a CPM. When the machine rewards the spiral becomes the job. And once the spiral is the job, reset, refocus, repent isn't just emotionally hard. It's a pay cut. Nobody in her comments is going to say that part. I'm saying it. But here's my honest read. And this is the one I've been sitting on all day. I don't think Chrisean is going to knock on that door. I think Chrisean said knock on the door because saying it out loud is how she keeps him watching. She knows he's watching. He's always watching. Every one of these streams is a message in a bottle addressed to one person, and the rest of us are just the ocean. That's the sad part. That's the calm but dangerous part. She's not performing for us. She's performing for him. And he knows it. And he's going to use it. And she's going to let him. And 2 months from now we'll be right back here, having this exact conversation, with new screenshots. Unless she means it this time. She said she's going to reset, refocus, repent, return to boxing. She said she's going to lock in and let go. She said Jesus is coming back, and she doesn't want to be left behind. She thanked people who reached out and held her accountable. She reposted the messages people sent her calling her behavior crazy. That last part is the only thing that moved my needle. Because agreeing you were wrong on your own timeline and your own words in public is one of the harder things a person can do. And she did it. Small. Quiet. But she did it. And here's why that matters more than it looks, mechanically. Every previous cycle of this saga has ended the same way. Escalation, blow up, silence, reunion, repeat. With the accountability step always skipped. Always outsourced. Always. Y'all don't know the whole story. This is the first cycle I can point to where the accountability step happened in her own handwriting, on her own page, without being extracted by an interviewer or cornered by a judge. Is it enough? No. Is it durable? We have literally years of evidence that says probably not, and I'd be lying to you if I dressed that up. But pattern recognition cuts both ways. If we're going to clock her spirals as data, and we did, all video, we have to clock the deviations as data too. The repost was a deviation. File it. Watch it. Don't celebrate it yet. Don't bury it either. Whether it lasts, that's another video. That's probably several other videos. Here's where we go from here, based on what we're actually watching unfold in real time. Nevaeh, Akira, and Jonathan are not going to publicly respond to any of this. Not directly. That's the play. They figured out something the rest of the cast hasn't. Silence, in a story this loud, functions like a lawyer. Every time they don't answer, the other side has to keep talking. And every time the other side keeps talking, they say something worse. So expect Nevaeh's feed to be baby pictures, matching fits, and soft-launch domestic footage for the next few weeks. Expect Jonathan to keep it moving with the streams. Expect zero direct engagement. And expect the silence to be loud, because that's the trick of it. Every soft-focus baby post that lands the morning after a Chrisean stream will read, fairly or not, as a response. Every unbothered story will be screenshotted into a narrative. That's the elegant cruelty of the position they're in. They can now communicate entirely by not communicating, and the audience will do the translating for free. Watch the timing of their posts more than the content. In this economy, the timestamp is the caption. The next flashpoint is Chrisean's fight. She said it herself, after my fight. Everything she wrote about Jerusalem, about building, about the choice. It was all tethered to after my fight. So watch that date, because how that fight goes is going to determine which Chrisean shows up next. A win, and the reset, refocus, repent era might actually get a real chapter. A loss, or something ugly in the ring. And I'll be very honest, I think we get a Crazy Love Part 3 within a week. She almost previewed the title on stream. I know you're like, where's Crazy Love Part 3? Should it be on the way or not? I'm just saying. 'Cause it's me. I'm not crazy no more. I'm insane. She said that. On camera. That's not a girl who has closed the file. That's a girl who has renamed the file. Watch Carlisa. Chrisean's mother has a way of showing up in these cycles right when things are about to escalate. Sometimes as a stabilizing force. Sometimes as an accelerant. Depending on what week it is. If Carlisa gets loud, we're in phase 2. Watch Whack 100. Because Whack has been navigating the Jonathan and baby mother situation as a manager, as a mouthpiece, and occasionally as a fire marshal. If he pops up on a podcast in the next 10 days addressing this specifically, expect the whole thing to escalate before it de-escalates. His involvement historically doesn't calm rooms. It fills them. Watch Jaden Alexis, because there's a very quiet, very under-discussed subplot here, where Jaden's own history with Jonathan overlaps with everything Chrisean is currently feeling about Nevaeh. If Jaden says anything, the layer cake gets a whole new tier. And let me put a finer point on the Jaden layer, because it's the most underexploded powder keg on the board. Jaden has lived a version of this exact movie. The other woman framing, the public rotation, the promises, the ring, the unraveling, from a different seat. She and Chrisean have been positioned against each other in past cycles. And now Chrisean is the one watching a newer woman get the ceremony. If Jaden chooses empathy, that's a genuinely new configuration. Two veterans of the same war comparing notes could change the whole geometry. And honestly might be the one development that could actually reach Chrisean. Because Jaden is the only person alive who knows exactly what that second screen feels like. If Jaden chooses comedy instead, a laugh, a repost, a karma-shaped caption, then the girl fight framing gets ratified all over again. He skates. And the machine gets another quarter. Her next move, however small, is a fork in this whole story. Watch Rella Baby, Sam, and Kai Banz's circles, because in the last 3 cycles of this drama, side commentary from the extended crew has moved the story more than anything the principals actually said. And finally, watch Chrisean's own posting cadence. If she goes quiet, she's actually working on herself. If she goes loud, she's working on him. Those are the only 2 speeds she operates in right now. And the difference between them is the difference between the next headline being Chrisean's comeback, and the next headline being something none of us want to type. One more thing to watch, and then I'll let you go. Watch what the platforms do. Not the people, the pipes. If the clip pages keep feeding this, if the streams keep pulling numbers, then every incentive in this story stays pointed exactly where it's been pointed for years, and all the prayers and reposts in the world are swimming against a current made of money. Real change in this saga won't look like an apology or a reconciliation. It'll look like somebody, her, most likely, choosing a smaller audience over a bigger fire. And I don't know if the culture, as currently configured, even lets a person do that. That's the question under all the other questions. That's the one I'll be thinking about when the next notification hits. That's where I'm leaving it tonight. If this helped you actually understand what happened instead of just seeing clips out of order, subscribe, hit the bell, and drop a comment. Tell me where you land. Is Chrisean crashing out? Or is she building the exit ramp in public? Is Nevaeh right to stay silent? Or is she going to have to say something eventually? And is Jonathan Jamal Porter running a business? The one Chrisean said he's running. Or is he just a man who got lucky with 2 women who love hard? I'ma be in the comments. This is Fame Cryptics. Don't sleep on the next 48 hours.